Hey folks, this is Chandran here, and today we're going to be taking a look at how to best get through the character creation process in Baldurs Gate 3. According to all the info I could dig up on the matter, you can respec everything except race and origin later, so do not worry too much about getting everything just right. So, for character creation, focus on picking a race and an origin that you will enjoy identifying with, looking at, roleplaying as for many hours. If you take nothing else from this video, at least remember this point. That said, if you're new to Baldurs Gate 3, the following guide will lead you through the character creation in what I consider to be the cleanest path. Yes, that is right. I would suggest that you do not just follow the order suggested in the generator, rather you should start out like this. The footage I'm using here is from early access. The character creator on launch will look very different, but you should still be able to follow the path I will lay out for you here. First off, start by taking a look at the Origin tab, just as the game suggests. The first choice you will be taking is whether or not to play as one of the special Origin characters, or as the Dark Urge, or as a completely custom character. If you want to play an Origin character, you will have a lot of your choices determined for you already, so that is one way to get through the creator faster. For the rest of this video, I will be assuming that you chose to play as a custom character, or maybe as the Dark Urge. So once you have chosen the custom character, leave the background for later and head to the class tab. Your class is the mechanical skeleton of your character. Even if two characters of the same class can play rather differently, it is what generally decides what you can and can't do. Pick something that sounds fun to you, something you get a good feeling with, or something you like the mechanics of. This should likely be the starting point for your character concept. You can always change it later if you change your mind. Make sure to look through the proficiencies you get, as this will determine which weapons and armor you will be able to use effectively. Now look at the available spells choices, but do not lock them in just yet. If your chosen class has subclasses, you might want to choose those now, or you can decide later when we will return to this place. Once you've made your selection, go on to the race. Your race cannot be respec'd later, and on launch all races will be getting the same ability bonuses, +2 to one ability and +1 to another, or maybe +1 to 3 different abilities. So consider the looks and the extra benefits they get. Make sure you choose something you want to stick with here, something you like the look or feel of. For mechanics, if you know you want to be experimenting a lot with respecting later, you can pick something generally strong, but if you are settled in on what you want to play, look at the benefits you get that boosts what you want to be doing, or at least that doesn't overlap too much. Getting a proficiency from both your race and class does not give you anything extra. Not that that should deter you from picking the race and class combo that you really like, of course, but it is worth considering at least. Now look at the available choices and do not lock them in just yet. From here, go to Origin or Appearance. Start with Origin if you're mostly a role player. Start with Appearance if you're mostly focused on mechanics. Let's try with Appearance first. Get a concept for what you want to be doing based on your class and race. Get your looks right. This is going to take a little while, of course. Then after that, you can start looking at the specifics of your character's mechanical choices, abilities, skills, spells, all that jazz. Once you're happy with your appearance, you can head on to your origin to choose your background. Mechanically, your background determines your inspiration and 2 bonus starting skills. Inspirations are specific hidden, you could call them achievements in the game, related to the goals of the background. Completing any of these will grant you an inspiration point that you can use to re-roll important out-of-combat rolls. I would suggest choosing an origin that actually aligns with what you personally find interesting, at least for your first playthrough. If you really want to be a hero, choosing folk hero and getting little pop-ups with extra rewards when you do something really heroic just feels so nice. Or you could pick Sage and get an extra reward when you discover a particularly rare piece of lore, etc. For the skills, your background is one way to get access to certain skills your class might not be able to pick. You can check the skills tab after you have picked your class to see if there are any you really want, but your class can't pick. Then look if you can get them from here perhaps. Background skills are locked, so make sure you don't have overlap between those you get for free here and those you get for free elsewhere, like race and certain class choices. Once you have chosen a background, go back to your class page. Your character concept, theme, whatever you want to call it, should be settling in a bit by now, making it easier to pick spells and other class choices. If you didn't settle on a subclass before, do so now. Once you are done here, it is time to look at the skills. The skills are separated into 3 categories. Inherited skills are the free skills you get from the choices you have made so far, mostly origin and race, but also certain class choices. And the other 2. Skills with proficiency and skills without proficiency. The ones with are those that you get to choose from, and you cannot choose the ones without. The names are a bit misleading, as you only really get proficiency in a skill once you actually pick it here. What falls into which category is determined by your class, and the only way you can change it is to pick another class. I would suggest that you do not do that now. The goal now is to get a rough idea of which skills you have to choose between and which of them you find interesting, but don't lock them in too hard yet. Notice that skills are related to different ability scores. You will be looking at your ability scores next, and you might want to mostly have skills that relate to your stronger ability scores. You ideally want to be picking skills and abilities in unison, as they are highly connected. You know best which way you want to be playing, so I will not presume to dictate what fits your playstyle. And almost no matter what you choose, you will be able to get companions that can handle the other skills. But I cannot deny that my own preference falls pretty heavily on having at least one of the communication skills: persuasion, deception, or intimidation. You can use the companions to cover these skills as well, but that would mean using that companion as what is called the face of the party, with it being them that initiates dialogue with the people you meet. I prefer filling this role myself, as it allows me to feel a little bit more like the main character, or maybe I just like being the center of attention, but who knows. You do you, of course. Lastly, we're looking at abilities. The ability scores are extremely important in that they determine a huge part of the bonuses you will have to all sorts of roles in the game, in combat and out of combat, so I'll be going a bit more in depth here. Luckily, they can be changed around later, and if you didn't get them just right now from the get-go, don't worry too much about it. The description of the abilities in the character creator on Mouseover are quite decent, if rather brief, so I will let you rely on those, instead of going through each one separately. But very generalized, if you want to be fighting, pick dexterity or strength, and choose a weapon and armor that fits that ability. High dexterity means lighter armor and ranged or finesse-like weapons, like rapier, bow, dagger, you name it. High strength means heavier armor and melee weapons, often bigger ones, like longsword, battle axe, or greatsword. If you want to be casting spells, pick the spellcasting ability, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma that is tied to your chosen class. Mouse over the ability score or check your class to determine which one is for you. Note, however, paladins use charisma here, but it doesn't seem to say so anywhere, at least not in the early access. Dexterity will often be a good extra stat here, as casters rarely use armor. And lastly, constitution is your hit points, and it's generally just a decent ability. On top of that, though, each ability has its own saving throw connected. Saving throws are something like spell defense, trap defense. Some are more important than others. Generally speaking, the ones connected to constitution, dexterity, and wisdom are the most important ones. Before allocating your points, I would highly suggest that you click the little arrow next to the ability in order to get a drop-down menu of the skills that are related to that ability. Baldurs Gate 3 have a lot of skill checks during the game, and if you see a lot of the skills you were considering connected to the same ability score, it might be a good idea to invest a bit into that ability. Abilities work like this. The score determines the bonus you get. The actual bonus is what matters mechanically, not the score. Bonuses rise by +1 for every 2 points over 10. This means that even scores are strictly more efficient than uneven, except in certain situations where you just want to push your score as high as possible in preparation for raising it later or something like that. You could simply respec later, so don't worry about that now. Your ability scores are capped at 15 as their base in character creation, and then you can get a maximum of +2 to an ability on top of that. It is your base ability score that determines the cost of buying that ability point. Everything costs 1 point, except for the score 14 and 15, which costs 2 points each. Your bonus scores goes on top of the base score for your final ability score. Most builds would want to reach 16 in 1 or 2 stats and have the rest of the points dividing out between other secondary stats, for skills, hit points, or other benefits. Once you have a rough idea of which abilities you will be focusing on, you should go back to the race tab and lock in your ability bonuses so they overlap those abilities. Now you just distribute your points, keeping in mind how you want to be fighting, what skills you want to be using, and how you will be defending yourselves. Remember, you can respec these later. You will not easily be getting any more points throughout the game though. At level 4, 8 and 12 you will get the option to choose +2 ability score points as a feature. Notice that these don't care how high your score is already. And there are a few known items that can modify your ability scores as well. I would not suggest you try to take those into consideration at this point. Lastly, many people like to have a dump stat. That means a stat that you take down to 8 in order to get more points for the abilities that matters the most to what you want to be doing. So, that should be it. Character creation is over, and it isn't even 2:30 AM yet. Or at least it would be over, if it wasn't for Larian's little surprise, which I won't spoil for you here. So, thank you for joining me, if you have been. I've been Shandron, and you've been awesome. I hope you liked this guide through the Baldurs Gate 3 character creator, and won't spend too many hours before you get to start playing this awesome game. Don't forget to do the YouTube stuff, and bye bye.